Levallios as autumn began in 46. The come-and-go heat signaling the end of another Virginia summer had left his wife feeling used up. By the time her mother was sure she was pregnant, the fever had flushed her face a mottled red, and her joints felt like linens twisted up and wrung out to dry. Lying in her sick bed, attended by her girl Aurelia, Lucy Reed passed 3 nights cursing her throat, the pain in her bones, and the itch. October rained on their tin roof, and it shook the first still green leaves from the sycamore outside her window. For her husband in the adjoining room, it became hard to separate the conditions that caused his beloved wife's discomfort. And though he would always tell his daughter that he loved her, he often wondered whether those 3 long evenings had been imprinted in his mind and heart and left him with a permanent deficit in his capacity to show her real, meaningful affection. When she was born the following summer, Aurelia's hands, the palms of which were rough and pink, were the first to hold the newborn child. Bob stayed with Lucy in the bedroom, holding her hand and using his other to cradle his wife's clammy face. The birth had not been as rough on Lucy as they had feared, yet they knew the danger for any child born to a mother who had been ill during the carriage. Aurelia took a pair of shears she'd boiled in water and cut the cord. She held the baby up for the 2 of them to see. "Girl child," she said. Lucy smiled. Bob took a washcloth and wiped his wife's forehead. "A girl," he said, as though he wasn't sure if she had been listening. To Aurelia he said, "Give her a look over and bring her back to us." Aurelia took the child to the basin on the porch. Night came in. She washed the film and blood from the infant's body. She swaddled the child and held her up to look her over. The child, not yet named, had neither gasped nor cried, but with a smack began to breathe. The baby's skin had a pinkish-gray cast about it, but she was quiet and blinked with drowsy contentment in the darkness of Aurelia's arms. The warm midsummer air surrounded them both. Aurelia's young son, Rawls, stood watching his mother rock the child from the yard as marbled moonlight fell through the expanse of the sycamore tree's darkening crown. Aurelia saw that the child's eyes were cloudy with cataracts, the pupils a swirl of the lightest gray at the center of dark, gold-flecked irises. She was sure the child was blind, and at that moment she began to tell the girl in a voice, one that sounded very much like singing, that it would be a hard life, that tomorrow would be a hard day, as would the day after and the day after that. But as she cradled her, she saw the girl's strange eyes moving toward points of light, the lamp burning with a quiet hiss, lightning bugs flickering in the yard, and what stars that could be seen from Chesterfield County assembled in the heavens. The first years of her life, or the times from those years that held their shapes firmly enough to be recalled in later ones, were simple. Her father's mule skinning made enough money to give them a comfortable life. Their home on the road between the coal fields and the river was modest but respectable. Aurelia attended to her dutifully. Emily became accustomed to Rawls's presence, even though she thought him peculiar. One summer he wove himself a hat out of green tobacco leaves, and she told him he was silly for not wearing a proper hat. Sometimes she'd watch him brush the mules' coats to such a sleekness that they seemed carved from polished stone. At dusk, he'd often take a homemade cane pole and cast it toward the heavens until bats whooshed down like rain from the blue-black sky. She did not know how old he was, except that he was leaving boyhood. When she asked him, he said, "I'm old enough, Miss Emily," and slinked away. When she was 5 years old, her father had let her keep a runt bird dog whelp she'd found in a ditch. She named her Champion. Rawls did not care for the dog. He thought she was unruly and spoiled, though Master Reed had taught her some basic commands. Rawls's meekness toward Champion gave Emily fits of laughter. By the time she was 8, she'd invented a game for the 3 of them to play. She'd tie the birder to the sycamore